I mean, this is one of the things I think about. This is why it was so interesting. It was how specific, how translatable is coordination, and are there just specific things? It's been noticed, speaking of Steph, that guys who are great shooters are great golfers, which, yeah, in a general way, that makes sense. It's hand-eye coordination, but those are two very different motions with your body. They're just very different. They shouldn't be as correlated as they are, but for some reason they are. I think we'll have better explanations of this in the future. I think science will tell us why those two things are linked, even though you wouldn't think they are. But I'm always curious about that stuff. It's interesting to me when I see Patrick Mahomes' high school basketball highlights and I go, oh, whatever that is seems to translate. But then sometimes you see these guys who are really great in a sport and they throw the first pitch out at a baseball game and it looks horrific. So yeah, just all sorts of little mysteries of physicality and proprioception. I'm continually interested in that stuff. You're talking about how it looks like Jason Tatum has the yips, and that just gets me thinking about, well, how can that happen? What is that? How does a guy suddenly forget how to do what he's always doing? I don't know. The human body's mysterious.
I have a feeling the golf basketball connection, I think, has to do with approach. Like the way you build out a jump shot is very similar to the way you build out a golf swing. Like you get in the gym and you just shoot shots. Like I remember during COVID, I got big into golf, and it's like you just go to the range and you just hit balls, and you're constantly focused on building out a muscle memory. So I think there's just some similarities there. But like for instance, like would Steph be able to, like if we told Steph within a week to be able to throw 10 straight strikes at least 70 miles an hour from a major league mound, could he figure it out? I think he probably could, because there's like a muscle memory and repetition piece to it that I think he'd eventually be able to figure out. But yeah, it is super fascinating. I think also a big part of it stems back to what we talked about at the beginning, which is the competitiveness element. Is Steph capable of going to play golf 5 times a year and sucking? No, he's like, I'm sure he just reached a point where he's like, I have to be better at this, because I want to compete.
I have a theory on that too with the golf, where when I hit a shot wrong, I don't know why I did it. I actually don't. I see what happens. I go, oh my God, I towed it. This happened this way. But I don't, with my body, I don't necessarily know why did I screw that up and why did this one go great. I don't know. And so I wonder how much of the ability isn't just your coordination. It's some other thing where you actually have the ability to know. You actually have the ability to go, oh, I missed that shot because I did this with my body, and therefore I need to correct that. And so it's a body awareness, not just the coordination, because I think the ability to know is key right now. And not to make it all about me, I'm hitting my drives really well, but I'm just at a loss right now. What's going on with my iron swing? And I'm just in the sea of doubt currently, where I've got this family trip in a week where we're going to play golf together. And I've got less than a week to figure out, do I just swing the iron without thinking anything and just hope it goes well? Or do I need to change what I'm doing? Is there enough time to fix it? I've got all this stuff going on in my head. And I think if I knew exactly what I needed to do, and I knew whenever I wasn't hitting that mark, it would be better. But I don't have that ability necessarily.
Ball striking with irons is easily the hardest thing that I ran into when I was like really getting into it. I barely play golf now, because ever since COVID stopped, or ever since I say that COVID era passed us and I got back into the gym, it's all basketball. During the pandemic era, they took the rims off of the outdoor hoops. I couldn't play basketball. It was like a bizarre era. But that ball striking with the irons is damn near impossible. I will say, you do know. I have been obsessed with shooting forever, because when I was in college, I was a very streaky shooter. And I had a coach who said to me once, are you a shooter or a maker? And that always ate at me, because I always wanted to be a maker, not a shooter. And there's this relentless pursuit of that. And pretty quickly you identify like most misses don't have anything to do with your release. They have to do with something before then. Usually it's like your base is a little off, your energy transfer was a little off. A big one is like, I had a coach in JUCO used to always tell me big hands, which was a big one. Like if you spread your fingers around the ball, you'll have less left-right misses just simply because of your control of the basketball, which is like, so like a lot of times what I'll do is I'll focus on something that doesn't have to do with the release. So like, I'll just think in my hands, in my head, big hands, big hands, big hands. Because shooting it's, for lack of a better term, it's a mind fuck. Because like even on your best day, you could go 2 for 9 if it just by virtue of shots not going in. And so to get out of your head, you focus on these like controllable things. Did I have my base? Did I get good lift? Did I have big hands? Was my follow through crisp? Like that sort of thing. Like you just focus on these little details. And I would imagine that if you and I played golf long enough, we would pick up on those things. Like, oh, I didn't drop my hands on my follow through. I didn't roll my wrist. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. I just think you and I are so amateur at it that we're not even perceiving these things.
There's a chance of that. It's so interesting though, that you really can't overload the pan, and you need, even if you are doing a bunch of different things at once with a simple motion, you need a maximum maybe of 2 cues, and 2 might even be too many. For me, it's just, I just try to dip the ball. I have a weird kind of Matt Bonner form where I don't necessarily dip it. And so I find a rhythm if I do that, and I can kind of connect to a rhythm. But if I'm in the heat of it, there was at Summer League, there was a game with a lot of team employees they got to play in. But the problem with team employees is that they're often former players and D1 guys. One of the teams had Kyle Korver and Landry Fields on it. I didn't play that team, but I mean, my knees were shaking out there. I was scared. My first shot was way off. I was almost looking at the ground to see if I was behind the 3-point line. I got all messed up. And then the second shot went in, but that was a long journey to the hoop. And that is it's just a great feeling of throwing it up all scared and it goes in. It's just the ultimate relief. But yeah, I really, maximum amount of cues. That's the cue, to try to dip it. And very similar with golf, a swing. God, it's so simple in theory. Just a back nut, but no, so many things are going on. And I liked something that Bryson DeChambeau was talking about when I was watching him discuss how he went about his swing, where he goes, I'm very iterative. I throw away something the second it stops working, and I just shift to another cue. And maybe you and I, we just don't do enough of this or that to really help us. But I think that's a cool way to maybe approach it, whatever you're doing, whether it's trying to get better as a shooter or golf, which is just, hey, the second the cue stops working, shift to another cue. Maybe that'll work. And if that one doesn't work, shift again. Maybe that's the best way to go about it. And that's better than, I don't know, trying to focus on everything at once.
I found this fascinating because I've seen Steph talk about this and I've seen Tiger Woods talk about this, but it's like getting out of your head seems to be one of the most important elements of this type of training. So like Tiger, there was a video, it was an Instagram reel, some Tiger's hitting at a range, some kids were filming him and they were asking him a question like, hey, like what's your one piece of advice for an amateur golfer? And Tiger goes like, stay off of YouTube, just go hit balls, is what he said. And then I think about like Steph Curry, and it's like Steph does several things with his shot that a shooting coach training a kid would not teach Steph to do. And we won't get into the weeds for that for time's sake, but like both of those, like Steph has some unorthodox pieces in his form. Tiger Woods famously was playing with, I want to say it was like Xander Schauffele or something like that. And he was talking about how he doesn't take divots. And the other guys were like, what? You don't take divots? And he's like, yeah, I don't take divots. And it's like, Tiger Woods doesn't take divots. It's kind of like a weird thing, right? And it's like, to that point, it's less about like, can you follow this proven path? And it's more about get out of your head and just practice. And eventually there will be results that inevitably follow.